What's up, guys? We're back with the rating climb. It's been a while since I've recorded a video. I've been really sick and totally lost my voice. So I have some of this. If you can see, that's ginger root. It's really good for sore throats. And I have a knife over here. I might actually stop and just cut off a piece of that and like chew on it if my voice is not going to hold up for this video. So we'll see how it goes. It started to come back. So, okay, we're fighting for the center. My opponent's playing the Scotch, and now they play the Scotch Gambit. And there's a line that I typically play against this, knight to f6. So this is what I'm kind of familiar with. So right now I'm not really thinking about, what all is going on in this position. It is a little bit of a tricky position because you have to watch out for e5, but I don't really have to think about that because I know this line. And I know that knight takes e4 is an okay move to play. Now, normally, if I'm playing this game and I haven't studied this, I'm going to be very scared to play a move like this. Because look at rook to e1 or queen to e2, and now the pieces are lined up on my king. It's pinning my knight. It's very scary. But I know for a fact that I have the follow-up move d5 to defend my knight. And even that gets kind of tricky, but because I've studied this, I don't really have to think about it. Now, I think white's best move here is actually bishop takes d5. And this is going to really tell me how well white knows their opening theory. Okay, they didn't know that one, which is understandable, right? It's a very weird move to play. But I'll just show you guys the point behind taking here is when I capture with my queen, white has this follow-up move knight to c3, which is a crazy looking move. But the point is I can't take it because remember, my queen is sitting here on d5. I would lose my queen. And of course, the knight can't move because it's pinned. And so white actually gets a fork and is going to capture my knight the next move with their knight. And so it's a kind of a complicated little tactic, but I believe it's the main line. Now, this might be an okay move as well. I don't think it's probably as good for for white, I'm sorry. This is where my opening knowledge ends. I was expecting maybe capture or bishop b5, I think is the other move. So now I'm kind of just back to playing chess, and it looks like white is simply threatening to take my knight. So I'm thinking bishop f5 or pawn to f5 to just try to defend my knight is probably what needs to happen. Bishop f5 is nice because it develops a piece, but f5 is nice because if I ever have to recapture, now I have like solid pawn center. It does create some weaknesses here. The other thing about bishop f5 is it sort of walks into a pin this way where I have to be careful where I move my knight to later in the game because I might lose my bishop. I wouldn't have that problem with the move f5. So I could see advantages to both of these moves. And I'm not actually sure like which one is the best. Probably going to be playing like bishop e7 to get out of this pin and then just castling is what I'm thinking. I don't really know. Let's go ahead and let's just play f5. And like I said, I'm not sure which move is the best, but I like the fact that my knight is like super solid now in the center. One thing I have to keep an eye on is the move f3. Well, if white were to move the knight and play f3, they didn't do that. So yeah, now I think I can just take back this way. And notice how even though there's two pieces attacking here, it's going to unleash my queen to defend that as well. And you can see what I was talking about. Now this pawn is supporting here, and I have this really nice center, which is looking pretty good for me. Okay, so c3 by our opponent. He's trying to undermine this pawn. I believe I'm just going to push by and just let my pawn chain kind of sit there. Of course, this is pinned, so it's not really defended by the pawn, but it is defended by the queen, which is good enough for right now. So I will play d3. My pawns are awesome. The problem for me right now is my king. Really need to play like bishop e7 and get castled right away, or maybe even move this bishop and queen and castle this way would be nice to get my rook lined up there. But I just got to get the king out of the center as quickly as possible. I think I am going to take this moment to cut off a slice of ginger root. I actually hate this stuff, but it works really good for your throat. So I'm going to put this in my mouth and just kind of chew on it a little bit. There's a pin here. Not really worried about this. It's defended nicely by the pawn. The pin tells me that white would like to bring the knight in and start attacking me here. One of these moves. I could play bishop d7 to just stop that right away. Or I could just play bishop e7, allow this, and then follow it up with bishop d7 next move. I don't know that it's necessarily better to do it one way or the other. I just want to get rid of this pin. So I think I will just go ahead and play bishop e7. I just want to renew the threat there, give myself the option to castle. And I'm going to keep an eye on this diagonal if I do castle. Okay, here comes the knight. And like I mentioned, I was kind of planning ahead for this. I think I will just play bishop d7 now, which kind of just defends everything. If white's going to take here, I'm happy to recapture with my bishop. And I still have this really annoying pawn chain just kind of controlling the center of the board here. Okay, so white does stop me from castling, at least temporarily. I might just go ahead and trade. Keep in mind, I am ahead. I have 2 extra pawns. I think I'm okay to trade. I could also think about hopping my knight in here to attack the queen. Looks like white has some decent options with the queen, though, and I don't really want to leave that knight just sitting there, I don't think. But I think I will go ahead and trade. Okay, so there's a threat here. But I wanted to castle anyway, and castling would defend that threat. Now my only concern is this diagonal is open. There's 2 checks. This one I might potentially lose a pawn. Do I really care about that at this point? It's not the end of the world, but maybe I don't want to give up that pawn for no reason. So I could also play like bishop f6 to defend that way. But then I lose this pawn because of the pin here. Okay. So with that in mind, I think I will give up this pawn. It's not a super important pawn, and once I get my king to safety, these pawns are going to be very powerful. And so I think I am going to go ahead and castle, understanding that this is a move for white. And yes, they are going to win this pawn. Okay, let's go ahead and put the king on a safe square in the corner. Now my king is very safe, and we can go about the rest of the game. And the nice thing for me is I'm developed, and white is not. Notice these pieces are still not in the game. So now that the king is safe, assuming white's going to go pawn hunting, I can start thinking about how to take advantage of my center control here. I'm thinking, okay, they don't actually take the pawn, so that's a little bit surprising, but I think I'll play bishop f6, just kind of bringing my piece forward with a tempo. Because if I can play a move with tempo, I don't give my opponent time to develop. I'm thinking a move like bishop c6 seems like a good place for the bishop, or just moving the queen somewhere just to get it off of the back and bring my other rook over also looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and play bishop c6. Notice it defends this pawn, so that now if I need to move this to start attacking, I have the option to do that without losing here. And, okay, we can attack here, but what does that really accomplish? I don't know. I think maybe I'll just play queen e7. Gives me the option to do this. Or queen e1 if I want to come this way. And we'll go queen e7. A lot of times, moving the queen off the back rank is a good idea to get your last rook into the game, because the queen sort of blocks the rook. But now that it's out of the way, I can slide it over here if I want to. Okay, I'm starting to look for tactics along this diagonal. Check. Bishop can't go there yet. What happens if I push? I don't have it defended well enough. Can I sacrifice a pawn? Ah, this move that I had earlier actually now is a skewer, so I think we will just do that. It just seems like a very basic and easy way to win a rook, actually. Good example of how something that I saw earlier doesn't really work, but one simple move by my opponent suddenly changes that, and now it's a powerful move. Okay, white goes there. I'm going to go ahead and take the rook. Of course, I'm not worried about this because the queen doesn't have any support, so no need to panic there. Notice all of white's pieces are still not really in the game, and very hard for white to deal with this powerful pawn chain. Okay, so we can jump in with the queen here. We can also just push forward. No, I don't have it defended well enough. D2 doesn't quite work yet. I think what I'm going to do is play rook here. I'm setting up to play D2, which would not only trap the bishop, but also threaten to get a queen. And I just needed one more piece, right? I only had one defender. I needed an extra defender. So the queen is guarding. I'm looking if there are any tactics where I can get away with playing that. I don't believe I can quite yet. I do want to save my bishop, so I guess we'll just go back. And I would like to get my bishop along this diagonal here. So I don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to have to kind of just play some moves. I don't like see a way to win immediately, even though we are up the rook. But basically just anything that kind of opens up the position. Yeah, I missed a move there. Now I see it, so I'll play it now. Okay, and I guess white's just trying to flag me, so they're sort of giving up all their pieces. But 1 minute is still plenty of time, so I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to take the stuff. And I think I see a way to force a trade here. Also, f4 looks like a really great move, just throwing those pawns forward. And white can't really stop this anymore. So e3 is coming next, probably d2 after that. Got the rooks supporting from behind. That should just about do it. All right, let's go ahead and trade the queens. Gives me less that I have to worry about and think about. We'll force this trade here. Otherwise, we'll get a new queen. And now I'm actually just starting to look for checkmates. And I see an idea of setting up my rooks like this, with the pawns creating the wall here. So it looks like it's a forced mate in 2, 1, 2. All right, so we'll go down there. And there's the checkmate. So let's take a look here at the game review. So yeah, we played a really great game. Looks like we had one inaccuracy there, but for the most part played it very well. I'll just show you guys. See, all of these are book moves. This is what I was talking about. I wasn't really thinking because I knew that these were book moves. And then right there, yeah, that was when our opponent kind of didn't know the line any further. So, you know, when you're first starting out, you don't want to just memorize openings. But there comes a point when you've kind of got the basic tactics under control, you're not blundering every move, when learning some openings can actually be very, very beneficial. And we saw that in this game. I knew the line, my opponent didn't, and they ended up getting into a bad position because of that, right? Had they known that this is the best move, and had they known to do this, I was going to go here. They could take here. I was going to go here. The game's going to go on, but they have a perfectly playable position. And so, just an example of, you know, studying openings can be beneficial in situations like this. All right, the ginger's feeling pretty good on my throat. So I'll go ahead and play one more game here, this video. Get us a little bit closer to that 1300 mark. Okay, and we are black again. Knight to f3 by our opponent. So I'm going to play knight to c6. And my point is I'd like to just immediately strike with e5. Okay, they did stop me, which is probably a good move for black. So I'm going to play the move for white, sorry. I'm going to play d5 now. And one of the things when you play this way is a lot of times in these queen pawn games, you need your c pawn to go to c5. And if you don't, it's kind of important that you get an e5 break, right? Because you want to strike at the center somehow. If you can't do it this way, your only other option is this way. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to and looking for opportunities to do. So with that in mind, I'm thinking about bishop g4, because if I take the knight out of the game, it makes it easier for me to play e5. I could also go bishop f5 and think about, you know, knight to b4. That's a pretty lame and easy threat to stop. So I think I will just go bishop g4 instead. I want to play e5 at some point. So interesting move by our opponent. What I'm asking myself right away is, what happens if I take it? Looks like they're going to recapture. Can I win a pawn here? Because it seems like I can just maybe trade off the knight and then capture the pawn. So I don't really see a problem with that. Are there any like weird tactics? What I'm wondering. And I don't believe so. So I think that might just be a mistake. Let's go ahead and capture. And let's just verify, now that we can see the position a little bit more clearly, let's just verify if I take, white is obligated to recapture or they lose a piece, right? So if they take with the queen, I can simply jump in with my knight, and I've got a tempo on the queen. I'm feeling pretty good. They take with the pawn, well, I can also simply take either way. And again, I'm feeling pretty good, so I don't see anything wrong with that. So we'll go ahead and take. And it looks like we just got ourselves a free pawn. All right, so I'm thinking, like I mentioned, capturing here. I don't know where the queen's going to go, but I don't see any places that look particularly dangerous. Probably they have to defend this. So back here, maybe here or here. Looks pretty fine to me, so I'm going to go ahead, capture on d4. Right, so they do go there. So let's just take a note of what is happening. That's defended. This is attacked. I'm leaning towards the move e5 because it really locks in that knight. Also lets my bishop out, which actually creates a very tricky threat here. There's an advanced tactic that I've seen before, and the way it works is you bring the bishop out, pinning the queen, and when you have the knight on the center, it actually tactically defends your bishop, because if white captures this, you jump in with the triple fork. So that's a very tricky move to see. So I believe e5 is a very good move. I could also play e6, but I don't like that my knight is not as well defended. I will play e5. Very dangerous threat, like I mentioned, and it's hard to see. Because at a quick glance, it looks like I can't go there, right? It looks like the queen just covers it. But if you look further, you will see the follow-up fork. We'll see if our opponent's going to notice that. But if they play like a, random developing move, we're going to win the queen. I say that actually bishop d3 does defend. So bishop d3 would be a good move for white. Like bishop e2 or bishop c4, even bishop e3. A lot of moves white could play here that would lose the queen. And there we go. They didn't spot the tactic, so it looks like now's the time. Just double checking. Make sure there are no crazy tricks that white has that would get them out of that, but it's a pretty straightforward pin followed by the fork. And so bishop to b4, probably going to get the brilliant move on that one. But definitely remember this tactical idea. It's a pretty cool one when you can pull it off like this. I'm going to take this opportunity to cut myself a new piece of ginger root here. All right, so our opponent is basically abandoning the queen. So there's a couple of ways we could do this. I think the simplest is just take the queen with check, take here with check, and take a rook. I'm getting so many pieces. Yes, there's going to be a fork here or a check here, but really, who cares? And that seems like, yeah, I'm just getting so many pieces. So let's go ahead and take the queen. Let's go ahead and go for the fork. I could even not take that and just defend with something like this. Also looks like a decent option. Not really worried about the bishop check. Although there's an interesting thing, if this bishop gets involved. A little bit tricky. Looks like I would be able to escape here. Maybe knight to h6 is the simplest. We've won the queen. Simply stop any shenanigans that white is up to. Yes, they would be able to save their rook. In an effort for keeping it simple, maybe I will just do this. I don't want to let my king get exposed and maybe there's some weird stuff going on. I'm already up a queen. And so I'm pretty happy with just playing here, getting my king to safety, and moving on with the game. Yes, I see that I'm going to lose a pawn, but I'm kind of prioritizing like what's going on. King safety in a position like this is a big deal for me. Much more important than losing a random pawn over here on the other side of the board. Okay, so queen's under attack. Let's think about where do we want to move to. Queen to f6 seems like maybe like a nice square, nice and aggressive square, or maybe queen e7. I'll go queen to f6. I'm eyeing this square, like if the rook takes maybe. We could get a fork. Okay, white's going a little bit crazy here with the sacrifices. I don't really see that one. Oh, maybe they want to go for the fork. Okay, actually not a bad idea. But keep in mind, we're up the queen. So losing a pawn like this, if it leads to some more trades, is actually fine for us. And that's what's happening here. So let's just go back. No reason to overthink it. I think maybe what I want to do is just start trying to trade off some of these rooks. So let's play rook here, offering the trade and gaining control of the file. And again, I'm happy to trade. We'll take with the pawn. And the reason I'm doing that is notice how the bishop is stopping my king from escaping. So if I were to like make a blunder and forget about my back rank, I could actually get checkmated. When I take this way, there's no chance I'm getting back rank mated anymore. It's one of those decisions where in an effort to just be on the safe side, I messed up my pawn structure just because like I don't want to get checkmated. Okay, so here we go. I could simply trade. I could also take this opportunity to pin the rook and potentially threaten to attack it with the pawn. Looks very dangerous. I think I will do that. Pinning pieces like this is very dangerous, especially when you have a follow-up pawn that can attack it. Yep, and white doesn't prevent that. Even though they defend, this is not a threat because the rook can't move. So I'm going to simply play e4 and capture it next move with my pawn. You can see how dangerous it can be to have your pieces pinned like that. Like if I was super low on time, I'm not super low. I have 2 minutes, which is plenty of time. But if I was like 20 seconds or something and I was afraid I was going to lose on time, I would probably just sacrifice everything here to go into an endgame where I have an extra rook, bring my rook around, start hunting the pawns, and that would be an easy way to win. And I wouldn't really have to think about anything. Since I have some more time here, I will go ahead and keep the pieces on the board and play a more normal move like this. But sometimes it's okay to sacrifice some pieces, even if it's not the best moves. If it just really simplifies everything down for you, that might be the best decision to make. But keep that in mind. There's no shame in that. Like if you're afraid you're going to lose on time, simplify it down, make it easy for yourself. And, you know, then you can just win the game that way. Let's go check and I'll snag this pawn over here. It's also going to line up on these pieces. Of course, you want to pay attention to discovered checks like this, but since my rook's defended, it doesn't actually do anything. So now I see a little tactic here. I could actually do it both ways, but we'll just go for this one. Check and check lures the king away, and we can simply take the rook. Now I'm seeing a checkmate here. All right, so good game to our opponent. Check the game review very quickly here. All right, so another pretty well played game on our part. Let's check the brilliant move. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to be. Yeah, bishop to b4. Yep. So let's go back. And it's interesting that it says e4 is excellent. So I'm just curious. Why does the engine say that this is an okay position for white? It wanted queen to d3. And then let's say I would have played e5. c3. Okay, let's say I would have went back here. Queen to b5, and basically the engine is saying somehow white has some counterplay here because I'm not developed and castled. And after the rook gets involved, white's actually doing okay in this position. Very interesting. Okay, but our opponent is not Stockfish. And so, yeah, they blundered here like we talked about. And at that point, I mean, the game was basically almost over, right? Like, we're up the queen, and it was just a matter of kind of finishing it out. So I think I'm going to call it here. I don't want to push my voice too much to make it get messed up. I'm going to give it another day to rest, and hopefully tomorrow I should be, I'm hoping, back to normal. So I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.